What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here to bring you another great episode of the Business of Strength podcast, where you can hear the interviews, tips, and tools to turn your passion for strength into a profession you love. On this episode is brought to you by the Business of Strength, where gym owners, fit pros can get the consulting, on-demand courses and tools they need to grow their business. Go to businessofstrength.com and download the free course so you can get moving on making more money, having more freedom, and getting more great clients today. Today's guest is my business partner and cohort, Dan Goodman, and we're talking about education. Why is education for your staff so important? And it starts at the core level of, being part of your brand, part of your mission, part of your core values, and obviously all the way to, making more money, right? And making your employees more valuable so they can do more and accomplish more, and in turn make themselves more valuable, at the same time making you more money. It's been one of the cornerstones of growing our business, making sure that we put great learning opportunities and education opportunities in front of our people. We have a lot of systems in place to help make it easy for people to spend some time and money on improving their education and knowledge base. And we're going to share that with you today. So there's some great tips here. If you run a gym, small or large, there's some great clues to be taken here from some of the companies, from Fortune 500 companies and other companies like ourselves, who have a very strong policies, benefits, bonus structure, PTO, paid time off, and such, specific for education improvement. So this is a must listen for all the gym owners out there who are trying to figure out ways to get their employees to level up. This is the Business of Strength, the importance of education. Take it away. What's happening, everybody? We're back on the podcast. This is the Business of Strength, and I'm here with my business partner, Dan Goodman. And today we're going to be talking about education, right? Making education a priority and making it a function of doing business with you as an employee, and how that's going to help you grow your business, your brand, and your profession, right? It's going to help you attract more professional coaches. It's going to help you improve some of the things that we talked about in the last podcast, like giving them a clear pathway in your company to self-improvement, to better opportunities, and so forth. And education has been at the forefront of what we've done at Varsity House since the very beginning. And I think, Dan, it goes back to, obviously, I've been teaching before there was Varsity House. And I think kind of like, when me and you decided to partner up in 2009, I was like, hey, why don't I start pulling some interns out of Montclair State, where I was teaching. And it was like, and that just became, in a sense, the inception of the education system. So much so that when we wrote our core values, when we wrote our company ethos, when we put our employee handbook together, education and the let's call
Commitment.
it thirst and the commitment to improving yourself through education, right, is a huge part of that. So
Totally. I would like to just throw out a disclaimer on this one too, is that I know sometimes when people are listening, it's like, it's easy from the outside looking in to look at a company, like a mature company, and say, oh, well, it's easy to have an internship when you have 10 people or 15 or 20 people working at your establishment. I just want it to be very clear that in 2009, our quote unquote internship was Joe and I saying, hey, how do we get some free help around here? And that was the launch of it. And we, just by blind luck, Big Mike decided to take us up on that offer. And
idiot,
he came along for the ride. And you look, though, I mean, he gave a lot of himself, and it's given him a lot of a great career opportunity and something he loves to do. So he stuck it out and was consistent. It's built a lot of authority here within our business. But if you're listening to this, it doesn't have to be what we do, because once upon a time, we just started doing something, and it's refined to the process of where we're at today, where it's, I think it's an industry leading mentorship program. And it's also the it's also harbored and is the birthplace for a lot of the teachings that we go over on this podcast, in the Business of
Yep.
Strength, in the Varsity House education platform. So
It's kind of like the lab for training too. We're always trying.
correct.
We make the interns are our lab rats, and we make them do all sorts of crazy stuff. But it's so like so we want everybody today that's listening today to walk away with a couple tangibles, right? Some things that you can implement into your gym immediately to improve the educational system, right? And so we'll give you those three tangibles, and it's basically we'll talk about how to build education into your schedule. Creating an education stipend and fund that maybe includes some paid time off for specific education, because we think that was an issue that we'll dive into that in a little bit. But if employees are taking off to go improve themselves to bring that knowledge back to your business and they get nothing for it, obviously that runs into a roadblock. And then last but not least, just setting up a great internship. And again, our internship was not great when it started. It's fantastic now. It was not great when it started, but as they say in business, you only get paid for what you get done, not what you dream about getting done.
Mhm.
Right. And so, for all the gyms out there saying, like, well, I don't have this place. Look, there's nothing wrong with having a guy standing next to you for 8 hours a day, watching everything you do, taking notes, spotting, charting, whiteboarding, and boots on the ground in a sense, learning and getting that real life experience, which is what we gave to Mike, right? And obviously I did I think we did like 2 days a week where me, you, and Mike did like an hour and a half of and I would just break down anything from anatomy training, and we just pick topics, and that was
Programming.
programming and stuff like that. And so again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because I think a lot of people, well, like you guys have this whole teachable platform and everything like that took a decade to get together, So let's start. I want to start with the ideological stuff. Why is education important, right? Obvious, right? Because college is garbage. Sorry, everybody, right? You barely learn enough to get the basic skills necessary to open the door, right? We have never had an intern come here with a degree in exercise science I could check off the box and say, this person's ready, they're a world-class coach. That's not going to happen. So the real education in almost every field begins after college, and that comes from the let's call it standard education, collegiate education of learning, reading books, mentorships, seminars, workshops, things like that, surrounding yourselves with other people in your field who are doing it at the next level, right? And so forth. So education is something that we here as a company, I'm looking for people who want to get better forever, right? And want to continue to learn. I'm not looking for a trainer who just wants to take his weekend certification, check a box off, and come train forever. I'm looking for something who wants to continue to learn and progress. Whether they want to become management or not, maybe they love training and all they want to learn about is training. Well, great. Dive so deep into that you become one of the best coaches, on planet Earth, right? And make that, your thing, right? But because not everybody's going to gravitate towards sales and marketing. So when Dan and I sat down and we were really designing, kind of like building the company structure from the ground up, I believe that starts with a great mission and a set of core values that we're going to hang our hat on. These are the standards in which we live by. And our mission is to facilitate greatness, to help our clients become the best unstoppable version of themselves, right? And that starts with yourself, right? Because as the saying goes, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else, right? So you have to look inward on all these things. And our core values are hungry, humble, and committed. You've heard it here a million times on the podcast. And the definition of committed by our company standards in our handbook says, a committed employee is committed to personal development, self-growth, and education, right? In all facets of their being, their skill set, their mindset, their emotional set, right? And those are all things that you should be trying to improve all the time, right? So whether it's getting better at communicating, whether it's getting better at the X's and O's of training, whether it's getting better at sales and marketing, right? We try to hire people that are learners, that and one of the first questions I ask people when we interview them, what are you reading right now? Like let me know what have you read in the last couple months? Who are you following in the industry? What are some of the who are some of the big leaders in the industry that you're reading their works, you're following their podcast and things like that, right? And those are some of the questions. And sometimes you don't get a good answer, right? So education is, for Varsity House, a condition of doing business with us, right? And it is something that we preach. We have an entire system of education standards set up so that we can ensure that that our employees are improving each and every year. So, all right. So let's talk about some of the action steps then. So, the first thing is, if you want to make education a priority, it has to be a priority, right? So it has to be built into your schedule. So, once upon a time, we would try to fit things into,
Whatever
like
was
everything,
left.
what was left, right? It's kind of, yeah, exactly. So whatever time was left, we would, oh, let's have a meeting or let's talk about this or whatever, right? And so, in order to standardize things, we just baked it into our schedule where, every single week there's a coaches meeting. And in each coaches meeting, Adam, now our director of training, is teaching a lesson, and or one of the other coaches, presents a lesson to the team, right? And obviously they review, issues in the gym, clients, programming and things like that. But there's some lesson revolved around the X's and O's of training, delivery, presentation, coaching ability, things like that, every single week now for several years. And every single employee knows that, on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, there's going to be, a coaches meeting, and we're going to meet and we're going to learn. Right. And that's our way of passing it down. Right. Because Adam, maybe somebody like Adam, who's really into reading, who's really into learning, right, is passionate about it. Maybe the next person down the line doesn't have the time, the ability, or whatever. And then the normal thing, a lot of gym owners be like, well, I get frustrated because they don't go to anything on their own. It's like, well, it's our job to pass it down. So we just decided that we were going to do that. And then Dan and I, flip flop and rotate, NPRs. And that's like a big monthly town hall where we do some type of, major lecture, and Dan just did one this week. And obviously there's some housekeeping stuff that goes on in those meetings, but the majority of it is to pass down a really valuable piece of knowledge and information to the team to help them better themselves.
Yeah, and I think with just having it anchored on a schedule, it's when it's anchored for anybody, right? Like it's when I know I have a town hall meeting the first Wednesday of every single month, and then the third Wednesday of every single month, Joe and I will flip flop back and forth. So I know when my presentations are going to happen on the schedule. And because I know those things, it's improved the quality of the presentation where I am researching. I am legitimately rehearsing the show because I want people to be engaged. I want people to look forward to our meetings. I don't want them to dread our meetings. So I try to make it like a paid presentation. And it also helps me with the paid presentations with the Business of Strength. But the thing is, on that front, is back to, like, I was having a conversation earlier this morning with a fantastic gym owner, Corey Davis. He owns Core Blend with his wife Morgan, and in the last 3 months, I don't want to disclose information, but they've had a killer year. They've done amazing. And at the beginning of the year, we tried to, formulate some anchored times where he could start reinvesting and she could start reinvesting into their team, into their marketing, and just free up the time to be able to think and formulate ideas to pass along to the team. And sometimes it's really hard for somebody to go from training, go from servicing. They free up all this time. And it's like, I was watching Talladega Nights a couple nights ago. It's like, I don't know what to do with my hands because people don't know what to do with their time. And I'm telling you, as a manager or a leader, your time, all you're doing is coaching people that work for you now. It's the same thing as coaching people on the floor. And, he's really adopted that. And there's two things that move a business forward really fast. It's one's marketing and one's improving your leadership ability. And your improving leadership abilities, just start thinking about it as accountability and coaching. It's the same shit that you do with clients that are trying to lose weight, trying to get faster, trying to get stronger. It's FaceTime. You need to be in front of them all the time. So that's really important. And just one thing before we go to number 2 about Adam is controlling that coaches meeting. Something that we didn't mention is that twice a month we get a coach up in front of the room to communicate something to the team. And I think getting live reps in front of the room, what does that do to the coach?
Sure.
Number one, it helps build authority for them, and they're really thinking about it because they don't want to drop the ball in front of their peers. And number 2, I think the biggest facet of great coaching is great communication. And you could be amazing in X's and O's. If you get in front of a room and you fumble and stumble and you can't explain your exercise that up here, it doesn't matter what you know.
Yep.
So getting those live reps in front of their peers has turned, I would say, mediocre communicators into great communicators.
For sure. And that's been a big part because I think, again, when you look at the general norm of educational pathway for most coaches, it's phys ed, exercise science, athletic training to coaching, right? There's not a lot of public speaking. There's not a lot of marketing. There's not a lot of they're not taking creative writing classes and things like that, right? So all the things that translate well into great communication, I hate to say it, but most science tracked and especially in the exercise science track negates all that, right? So they don't get any of that. You're learning kinesiology, anatomy and physiology, all that type of stuff. And, some of the most basic, life skills like being a really good speaker, really good communicator, are missed out on, right? And that's something that I think a lot of that we've done a really great job at conveying to the team. Hey, look, I want you to absolutely master your X's and O's. I want you to be the best coach that you can be. I want you to go to training certifications. I want you to read, books on training. But even if you learn everything there is to train and you become world class, if you look at every great coach out there, and I mean the greats, the Mike Boyles, the Eric Cressys, the Joe DeFrancos, they're all amazing communicators too.
Mm-hmm.
They're all amazing at their craft, but they've learned the other intangible skills of presentation, entertainment, and communication, right? Because that's a huge part of coaching, right? Is to get people to buy into you and what you're doing.
You think about it, right? Like all those people that you just talked about, we've had Mike Boyle on the podcast. Hopefully we get Joe and Eric on the podcast at some point. But I was listening to Joe DeFranco's podcast on the ride home last night, and he's telling a 20-minute story about Verizon. And I'm engaged. I'm like, shit, what happened with Verizon here? He's become such a good entertainer that, he's become such a good communicator that it's almost entertainment. And let's be honest, in a gym, I know there's a lot of hardcore, X's and O's people that listen to this and we pride ourselves on the product, but I promise you at every gym in every town across America, there is a coach that doesn't know a lot about strength and conditioning, that has a great time, that's totally committed to their session, that has a full book of business.
Oh yeah. And clients love them.
Yeah, exactly.
So great. So again, building it into your schedule is key. So, maybe if you don't have this set up now, it's a once a month NPR and you pick a couple topics. If you're going to do that, maybe you just pick all 12 topics for the year, pick 12 topics that you think would be pertinent. You got 10 to 15 minutes of housekeeping where you can talk about maybe some specific client issues and how you address them and so forth. And then a 45-minute discussion on a specific topic. We do practical style, we do lecture style. It really depends on what we're doing, but we do it all. Some things are hands-on, and another thing on that too, as part of that schedule, we'll bring people into the gym, and we've brought lots of different other experts here to the gym to teach our team certifications,
Mm-hmm.
Kettlebell instruction, ski and row experts and things like that. And they'll bring them here. And, and obviously, I just got off the phone yesterday with our good friend Jay Max Edge up at Max Edge Fitness in New Hampshire. And Jay's absolutely hands down one of the best large group, program coaches in the country. And he's going to come down and work with our team a little bit to give them some stuff. We just sent Kat up there. She's up there for the weekend, spending the weekend with Jay, learning from him and his team, and so again, you just look at like, it's a massive priority to us, because I know that if I can invest $500 into a employee's education, then I'm probably going to get a 10x return on that. Right. So that 500 should make me $5,000, no problem, easily. Right. And or more forever. Right. Because again, if you like, you look at like our Simone, right? Simone just went and got an FST stretch certification recently. Right. That's a billable service that she could utilize here in the building forever. Right. And make herself and us more money, and at the same time providing a great service and value to our team, right? To our community. All right. Number 2, right? An education stipend and PTO, right? You got to reward people for wanting to better themselves. And again, I had this discussion twice yesterday with other business owners who are in our mastermind. Why don't my employees get it? Why don't they just do it? Right? It's 30 years old. You should just get out there and do it. It's like, guys, you have to lead people. You have to give them the opportunity. And here's the discussion that we've had. And because me and Dan found we're had that same frustration. Why don't coaches just go pay and go to their own certifications? I did. I went to everything, right? Well, there's a reason why I'm on this podcast. Dan and I own the business, right? And we're the entrepreneurs and we're the thought leaders and driving forces behind the business, right? Not everybody's going to be like that. So if you want people to educate themselves, you got to give a little bit. So what do? We give them a nice stipend. We give them $500 a year, carte blanche. Anybody could use it on anything. Just let us know what it is, right? Not anything in education that's going to come back to the business. And we've even gone as far as giving them 3 additional PTO days to use for
That's
education.
the biggest component.
And that's been huge, because now let's say you're going to a 3-day seminar or a weekend seminar, right? Not only are we paying for it, but you're still getting your paycheck. That's a win-win for the employer. Why wouldn't I go better myself now? Now it's a no-brainer, right? And if it's something that we think is going to come back to us even better, it's going to be something that's a billable service, something unique like the FST stretch, we'll even pay more, right? I'm happy to give you more money if it's something that we think is going to be of high value, right? So there are, but the standard that's built in is a $500 a year stipend, 3 PTO days, right? Use it any way you want to better yourself and better your education knowledge. And that could be used again for training certifications, things like that. But if somebody wanted to go take like a business course, a sales course, of course, that's something that we think would be great too. Maybe some of the coaches should do more of that stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I think as business, like when we were going through the Jim Jones process, it was, I mean, I'll be honest, like if I had like PTO that was looked at like, well, how much time is this going to take you to finish? I probably would have never finished that, because, over a course of 2 or 3 years, we probably easily spent 20 days, 25 days in Utah. Yes, we were absolutely, it was work. There's no question. It was awesome, but it was work. But if I was working for somebody else,
no, that wouldn't have happened.
I wouldn't have happened. So you have to think about that, where, hey, what are the 2 things that people are concerned about? Time and money, obviously. So let's give them time. And in most scenarios, as a seminar is a Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday. If it's in a cool place like Austin, hey, maybe they could double it up as a little vacation too. They go out Thursday, Friday, they're not penalized. They take a vacation day on Monday. And those are the things that really attracted me to being able to travel in the industry. And, we've done a lot of mixed, almost like training vacations. And we wanted our team to be able to experience some of the same things that we did.
I mean, we still go to stuff all the time. I pay more for education now than probably ever. We have
Mm-hmm.
business coach, sales coaching. Dan spent, the entire pandemic doing the Goldman Sachs 10,000 business leaders program. I'm, done all sorts of writing courses, and stuff like that. And you know, I also, part of it is us leading from the front and wanting our team to see the change that it creates, right? Because I know that every time I go to something, I learn even if it's one or two great takeaways that you're going to bring back here. A lot of times it could be worth it. Some things can be incredibly profound, and I look at, like, the very first thing that me and you did together was going to Louisville to work with Pat Rigsby, and that changed the course of our lives. When you think about it on a deep level, that changed the course of our business, which ultimately changed the course of our lives and rerouted our entire thought process. And that has happened several times. Jim Jones, same thing. Me and Dan did that more for ourselves, more for our own personal development, and more for our own personal bond, right? So me and him had some, let's call it, like, me time together, and we were traveling, and some of the best ideas we've had for our business came out of that. But the community of clients and employees were, like, so excited for us and behind us, and it really did create this spark of, like, hey, these guys are trying to be world-class leaders in the industry by educating the hell of themselves, by maintaining a certain standard of fitness and all the things that kind of went around with it. So if you really want to make it easy for your employees, give them some type of stipend, give them a free day or two or
It's
three.
so easy to do.
And
Like it's
yeah, especially if you're a small shop and you only got 2 or 3 employees, what's $1,500 if somebody goes and gets a great certification? I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, right? And then last but not least, guys, is the internship. And we talked about it in the beginning here in the cast. And it's just nowadays with the internet and your ability to market your own internship, right? And amongst your own list, if you're a business that has an email list and a social media presence, you don't need to have the same connection that I do to the university, right? You can put an ad on Indeed, you could put an ad on Facebook Jobs, you can put social media post, you send an email out to your community, out to your clients, because I bet you one of them has a niece, nephew, cousin, brother, uncle, somebody who's, you know, looking for a job, right? And looking or going to school for exercise science, phys ed, athletic training, one of the key, degrees that you're looking for. And we've gotten a lot from there, right? So, my relationship with the school has been extremely helpful. But if that went away completely, we would still have interns, right? And like this year being an example, we have a kid, from Montclair, Syracuse, Stack, Miami U, right? So it's diversified. Where, like, years ago, it was like we had like 3 or 4 kids from Montclair, and that would be it, right? And so forth. So it's got as the program has gotten better, we're attracting better talent from all over. We've had kids from Delaware, Yukon, right, and so forth. So an internship is a must for a gym business, in my opinion, because payroll is your biggest expense. So here's how an internship feeds the beast in a sense. It does a couple things. One, it bakes in education right from the start of the journey of an employee, right? They know that they are coming to learn the X's and O's of training. And obviously here at Varsity House, we give them business, marketing, sales, right? There's a lot more than just training, but the training, I would say, is 70% of the program, so they can get proficient in that. And they get a lot of other stuff, right? Dan and I do a 2-day intensive, like, business basics course with them, right? And that's coming up in a couple weeks, and we'll spend 2 full days with the interns. We'll take them out to lunch and stuff like that. It's a great kind of bonding experience for me and Dan with the interns. And then um and the second thing it does is it allows you to vet people long term, right? So you have, let's say you take 2 interns and you have them with you for an entire summer for free, right? Or for a small stipend, a couple $100 a month, right? You got cheap labor, and you got to see people in action for 2 or 3 months. You give them a part-time job when they're done, if they got to go back to school or whatever. You part-time them for 6 months to a year until they graduate. And when they graduate, you start them off at an entry-level salary. But now you've had a person in your system for the better part of a year to 2 years, depending on where they are in their college, degrees. I like taking sophomore summer interns, people who are going into their junior year. I don't like graduating senior interns, right? And not that we won't take them if they're good, but the reason is that at the end of the intern, they're looking for full-time work, right? I'm looking for someone who's got to go back to school for 2 more years, 1 to 2 more years. Why? Because that allows me to really see them in action. An intern's great. They work hard. We don't expect a ton out of them, but then they become an employee part-time and they got to watch them really work. How do they really go to the, once you cross over to the other side of the desk, in a sense, like what happens now? And then we can put them in. You look at like Kat, internship, a year of true part-time, a year of nearly full-time work, like 30 hours a week ish, right? To graduating, and now she's going to take over the new facility in Ridgewood. And so I had 2 years and a summer basically to develop this person into a management style leader, right? And that really is the key. And you look at Adam, same thing, right? Great intern, part-time for a year, full-time hire after that, performance director, right? Mike, same thing. Intern, part-time for a year, maybe and a half. I think Mike did 3 semesters part-time when we were still in school, full-time hire, been here for 12 years. Going on 30, so
I think too, like if that you could look at it too, like we have connection, obviously, through some universities, being a mature company, having a lot of measured success of placing people either here as full-time employees or at other universities and things like that. If I was trying to attract an intern and I didn't have some of these connections, you have to think about team members or employees as like investments. So if you put out a job description and you were willing to pay somebody $250 a week, okay, $1,000 a month, and they were there for 90 days, that's a $3,000 investment, but it's a definitive start and stop. So it could be seasonal to help you during the busiest time of your year. But at the end of it vests them for 90 days. And in 90 days, the goal is to get this person above the bar. And hopefully you have a team member that can really help make you some money in only a $3,000 investment. So we've started to do some things to start to attract some talent where it's like we're paying for certifications. We pay a small stipend. And the minute we started doing those things, we started getting flooded with more applications. And we will probably continue to go in that direction to improve the talent pool because it will expedite the ROI of that employee. Because look, internship here, we hire somebody every year. The better people we have competing for the same job, the better off we're going to be. So look at it like an investment in people. I mean, look, 90 days, like most businesses are sitting, or hopefully you have some money in the bank where it's like, all right, there's a $3,000 investment for 90 days. And it could be less. You could say, hey, I'm going to take two people and I'm going to pay them each $150, dollars a week. So that's $600. So it's a $3,200 or $3,400 investment, and you get to pick the better one of the two. So don't think about investing money as like the next piece of equipment or the next marketing funnel. The easiest way, all right, the easiest way to scale your business is to have great people that work within the business. That's the easiest way. And we found that the internship has been a great breeding ground for building team members that employ our core values.
For sure. And it also allows them time to expose them to core values. We're running one of the more system-driven businesses that we've seen in the industry where, we have a very well-defined systems. We're huge on our mission, our core values, and the structure of accountability, KRAs, KPIs, all the things we talked about, and we've talked about on the podcast. And that's probably the first time that somebody who wants to be a coach ever gets exposed to almost a corporate level style of business, but with a fun, gym flair in a sense, right? Obviously, we're trying to run a Fortune 500 style business, but, in a gym, right? And having fun with it, right? And so, like, it can be, I don't say overwhelming, but some people aren't used to that level of structure, and they think they're just going to come in and be able to train for 3 hours a day, and this is going to be like some CrossFit box where it's just whatever, they just come in and do whatever they got to do all day, and they're not, and here it's like, no, your education, learning, meetings, training, and they're like, oh my God, this is a lot, right? And then anybody who's a full-time coach or been a full-time coach for a long time knows that coaching is a giant energy drain. And so, like, kids will come in here really high. I want to be a strength coach. I want to do this. I want to do that. Okay, let me see you put 8-10 hours a day in for a couple weeks and see what happens. And it's like having a slow little leak in your tire, and 2 weeks in, they're like, I could see they're walking around with the super big gulps of coffee, right? 6 weeks in, they're like laying on the benches, by the end of the summer, in the middle of August here in Jersey, it's 90 and humid. They're like, and they're mouth breathing skeletons, they're barely versions of themselves. And like, I look at like us in the beginning, we used to do a ton of offsite stuff. So remember, like, when Mike interned and Nick interned, we were on the fields for hours too. We were literally standing outside in the blazing sun for hours. Now we got this nice big cushy gym. The interns got it good. So those are my 3 takeaways for me and Dan, right? That's going to be, right, again, if you want education to improve in your gym and you want to create better coaches who provide more value for your business and ultimately provide more value for themselves, right? If you're a coach listening to this and you want to make more money, right? Build education into your schedule, right? Develop some type of education stipend or PTO program that you can give back a little bit to your employees so that they feel empowered to go learn something, right? And create a great internship. And the internship process is well documented. You can go back through the podcast. We've done several podcasts on the internship. You can go to businessofstrength.com and you can check out a whole bunch of stuff that we've done there on the internship specifically, and or give us a buzz here, shoot us a DM, or hit us an email at info@Varsity House Gym, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have on your internship program. So that's our episode for today, gang. Education is key to growth and development as a business. And it is the key in my as the great businessman and marketer Don Miller says, it is the hidden stairway to success is education. So that's the Business of Strength. Thanks for having us, and we'll see you next time.
Later, everyone.